In the vast reaches of the universe, there were countless worlds filled with alien beings, each more fascinating and mysterious than the last. Yet, among all these planets and civilizations, humanity was just beginning to carve out its place. The Human Federation was still young, only recently emerging from the dark times of war and strife. But the humans had already shown that they had the will to survive and the courage to explore the stars. One such human was Leon, a decorated war hero known across the galaxy for his bravery. He had fought in the brutal intergalactic conflicts, a series of battles that had pitted humanity against several alien factions. As a soldier, Leon had learned the hard way what it meant to protect those he cared about. His sharp eyes, hardened by countless battles, were always watching for danger, always ready to defend. Arya, on the other hand, came from a far different world. She was an alien diplomat from the planet Velo, a peaceful and advanced civilization that had long ago moved beyond war. Arya's people were intellectuals, scientists, and explorers, their society built on cooperation and understanding. Yet as a diplomat, she had seen the darkest sides of the galaxy, witnessing countless wars and skirmishes between different alien factions. When she arrived on Earth to negotiate a treaty with the Human Federation, she did so with hope, hoping to build a future of peace between her people and the humans. The first time Leon and Arya met was at a grand reception held by the Federation's High Council. Arya was there to represent her planet, while Leon had been invited for his role in the recent victories during the intergalactic conflicts. As Arya stood at the entrance observing the human military officers and diplomats, her attention was immediately drawn to Leon. His presence was commanding, not just from his tall muscular frame but from the quiet strength he radiated. His face, though youthful, bore the marks of someone who had seen too much and lost too much. Leon in turn was intrigued by Arya. She wasn't like the other diplomats he had met. Her green eyes seemed to look through him, as if she could see every secret he had kept hidden. She was graceful, with an air of calm that was rare among the frantic humans of Earth. He was used to chaos and danger, but there was something about her that made him feel at peace. The evening was full of speeches, handshakes, and polite conversation, but as the night wore on, Leon found himself drawn to Arya. He approached her cautiously, unsure of what to say. His experience on the battlefield had taught him how to read people in tense situations, but he was out of his element here, in this peaceful setting. He introduced himself with a simple, "Leon." Arya smiled, her lips curving into a warm, welcoming expression. "Arya," she replied, her voice soft and melodic. "I've heard much about you, Commander Leon." They spoke for hours, exchanging stories about their lives, their worlds, and their hopes for the future. Despite their differences, they found common ground in their shared desire for peace. As the night came to a close, Leon found himself reluctantly saying goodbye, but he felt a strange pull in his heart, a feeling he couldn't explain. Weeks passed, and Leon and Arya's relationship deepened. They spent more time together, talking about everything and nothing at all. Leon found himself confiding in her about things he had never shared with anyone. He spoke of the horrors of war, the loss of friends, and the crushing weight of responsibility he had carried. Arya, in turn, shared her experiences of diplomacy and the struggles of trying to bring peace to a galaxy that seemed determined to be at war. She admired Leon's courage and strength, but she could see the burden of his past in his eyes. As their bond grew stronger, so did their feelings for one another. Leon, who had never believed in love before, found himself captivated by Arya's intelligence, her kindness, and her unwavering belief in the possibility of peace. Arya, who had spent her life among beings who valued intellect over everything else, was drawn to Leon's strength and unwavering sense of duty. He had a warmth that she had never encountered in her people, a fire that burned within him even in the darkest of times. One evening, as they walked along the shores of Lake Triton, a peaceful spot near the Federation capital, Leon stopped and turned to her. The setting sun cast a golden light over the water, and the soft breeze rustled the leaves of the nearby trees. "It was the perfect moment, Arya," Leon said softly, his voice full of emotion. "I've seen a lot in my life, death, destruction, and pain. But with you, I feel like there's hope. I want to protect you, keep you safe. No matter what happens, I'll always be there for you." Arya looked at him, her heart pounding in her chest. She had never expected to hear such words from him. Her people were not ones to easily express emotions. But there was no mistaking the sincerity in Leon's eyes. He meant every word. "I know you will," Arya replied, her voice filled with tenderness. "And I will stand by you, Leon. You don't have to carry the weight of the world alone." Leon reached for her hand, his grip firm and reassuring. "I promise you, Arya, I'll protect you. I swear it." And so, under the fading light of the twin moons, Leon made his vow to Arya. It was a promise born of love and honor, a promise to always keep her safe, no matter the cost. Little did they know, this vow would soon be tested in ways they could never imagine. The days that followed were filled with joy, but also an underlying tension. While Earth was enjoying a brief period of peace, the galaxy was never truly calm. News of alien fleets gathering at the borders of Federation space had begun to trickle in. The Tsar, a ruthless and technologically advanced alien race, were making their move. They had conquered several star systems, leaving nothing but ruins in their wake. It was only a matter of time before they would set their sights on Earth. Leon's thoughts often drifted to the looming conflict. He had faced many enemies in his time, but the Tsar were different. They were an entire civilization built on warfare, their technology far beyond anything humanity had encountered. And yet, despite the growing threat, Leon couldn't shake the feeling of peace he found in Arya's presence. She was a light in the darkness, a source of strength when he needed it most. The day the news came, Leon was sitting with Arya in their small apartment, discussing plans for the upcoming Federation summit. The message came in the form of a sudden alert, a red flashing light that broke the peaceful atmosphere. Leon stood up immediately, his military instincts kicking in. Arya's heart skipped a beat as she saw the look of seriousness on his face. "It's them," Leon muttered under his breath. "The Tsar." The room fell silent for a moment, the weight of the situation settling over them. Arya took a deep breath, her hand reaching for Leon's. "We knew this day might come," she said softly, though her voice betrayed her own fear. Leon looked at her, his gaze fierce but tender. "Don't worry, Arya, I will protect you. I promised." And as the alarms began to sound across Earth, signaling the beginning of what could be humanity's greatest trial, Leon's vow to protect Arya became more than just words. It became a pledge that would shape the future of both their worlds. The warning sirens echoed across Earth, piercing the peaceful hum of daily life. It was a sound that filled everyone with dread, a sound that had not been heard for many years. The Federation had prepared for an attack, but nothing could have prepared them for the scale of what was coming. Leon had seen battles before, but this was different. The Tsar had arrived. They came from the depths of space, a massive fleet that seemed to stretch across the stars. Their ships were sleek and terrifying, with dark metallic surfaces that glinted in the light of distant suns. The Federation's fleet, though strong, was dwarfed by the sheer numbers of the Tsar forces. Leon knew that Earth's forces were outmatched, and the Tsar's ruthless reputation only added to the fear that gripped the Federation. Leon was not one to show fear, especially not in front of his wife, Arya. But as he sat in the command room, his eyes fixed on the display of the Tsar fleet approaching, he couldn't deny the sinking feeling in his chest. This was unlike any enemy he had ever faced. The Tsar were not just conquerors, they were predators, and they had set their sights on Earth. Arya, too, could feel the tension building in the air. The alien diplomat had spent years negotiating peace treaties between various factions, but even she knew that words would not work here. The Tsar were not interested in diplomacy. They wanted nothing more than to crush any opposition in their path. She had warned Leon that her people's peaceful ways might not be enough against such a force, but she never imagined she would be forced to live through it. "Leon," she said quietly, standing beside him in the command room, "what will we do?" Leon turned to her, his expression fierce but soft. "We fight. We defend Earth with everything we have." His voice was steady, but Arya could hear the edge of concern hidden beneath his calm exterior. Arya nodded, her heart heavy. "I'll stand with you, Leon. I won't leave your side." As the days passed, the Federation's forces began to prepare for the inevitable battle. Leon's presence on the front lines was required. He was a symbol of hope, a warrior whose leadership had led to numerous victories. But this time the stakes were higher and the battle would be like no other. Earth's survival depended on the bravery of every soldier, every leader, and every person who was willing to fight back. Arya couldn't stay on the sidelines. As much as she wanted to stay by Leon's side, she knew that her skills as a diplomat and her knowledge of alien technology would be needed. She had always prided herself on being able to find peaceful solutions, but now in the face of the Tsar's cruelty, it was clear that their knowledge of weapons and technology would be Earth's only hope. The Federation's plan was simple, but dangerous. They would launch a surprise attack on the Tsar fleet using their most advanced ships and weapons. The Federation had spent years researching Tsar technology, trying to understand their ships and weapon systems, but nothing could truly prepare them for what lay ahead. Leon knew the risks. He had fought in battles where victory was uncertain, where the odds were stacked against him. But this was different. The fate of Earth hung in the balance, and failure meant extinction. He had to succeed. There was no room for error. He kissed Arya gently before he boarded his ship, knowing that it could be the last time he saw her. "I'll come back," he promised. "I'll protect you." Arya nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Be safe, Leon. Come back to me." The battle began in the early hours of the morning, with the sky above Earth filled with the sounds of warships launching into space. Leon was at the helm of the Talon, one of the Federation's most advanced ships. He had fought in many battles, but this felt different. The air was thick with tension, the weight of responsibility heavier than ever. He wasn't just fighting for Earth. He was fighting for Arya, for the future they had built together. For every person on the planet, the Tsar fleet was massive, their ships arranged in tight formations, moving with the precision of a well-oiled machine. It didn't take long for the first shots to be fired. Bright beams of energy lit up the dark expanse of space as the Federation's fleet engaged the Tsar in a furious exchange of fire. The Tsar ships retaliated with deadly accuracy, their weapons tearing through Federation ships like paper. Leon barked orders to his crew, his voice calm but commanding. Every second mattered. The Talon dodged enemy fire, its advanced engines humming as Leon pushed the ship to its limits. But the Tsar were relentless. They weren't just attacking, they were hunting. The Federation was not just an enemy to be fought. It was prey to be destroyed. "We can't hold them off for long," shouted one of the crew members, his voice filled with panic. "We won't need to hold them off for long," Leon said, his eyes narrowing. "We just need to buy time. Earth's defenses are about to launch." As the battle raged on in space, Arya worked tirelessly on the ground, helping to coordinate the Federation's defense efforts. Her alien knowledge proved invaluable, as she was able to assist in setting up the Federation's energy shields, which were designed to block the Tsar's powerful energy blasts. But even with her expertise, the Tsar were pushing forward with terrifying strength. The Federation's defenses were already being stretched thin. Back on Earth, Leon's thoughts were never far from Arya. He knew that she was fighting just as hard as he was, though not in the same way. He trusted her, and he knew that she would do everything in her power to help protect their world. He only wished he could be there with her. As the Federation forces continued to clash with the Tsar, the battle began to turn in the Federation's favor. The Tsar were formidable, but they had underestimated humanity's will to survive. Leon's leadership, combined with the unity of the Federation's forces, began to tip the scales. The tide of battle was shifting slowly but surely. Leon's heart raced as he watched the Talon take down another Tsar warship. It wasn't enough to win the war, but every victory counted. But as the battle continued, the Tsar's tactics grew more brutal. They began deploying their most terrifying weapon, an enormous bioengineered creature that they unleashed upon the battlefield. This creature, designed for destruction, was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. It was a massive, monstrous beast that towered over the Federation's defenses, its sharp claws and fangs capable of tearing through anything in its path. The Federation's forces were no match for it. The creature rampaged through their ranks, its roar shaking the ground beneath them. Leon knew that this was a turning point. If the creature wasn't stopped, the Federation would fall. Back on Earth, Arya's heart raced as she heard the news of the bioengineered creature. She knew that if humanity was going to survive, they needed a way to fight back. Using her knowledge of alien biology, she began to develop a plan. She contacted Leon through a secure channel, her voice calm despite the urgency of the situation. "Leon," she said, her voice steady, "I have a solution. There's a weakness in the creature's design. If we can strike it at the right moment, we can stop it. Leon listened carefully, his heart pounding. "Tell me what to do, Arya. I'll do anything." "Trust me," she said, her voice filled with conviction. "I'll guide you." With Arya's instructions, Leon and his crew managed to launch a daring strike at the bioengineered beast, exploiting its weakness just as it was about to crush the Federation's last line of defense. The battle was fierce, but with Arya's guidance, the Federation was able to disable the creature, sending the Tsar forces into disarray. It wasn't the end of the war, but it was a victory. Earth had survived another day, and for Leon and Arya that was enough. As Leon watched the aftermath of the battle, he knew that this was just the beginning. The Tsar were relentless, but so was humanity. And with Arya by his side, he knew they would face whatever came next, together. The victory over the bioengineered beast had brought a brief moment of relief, but the war was far from over. Earth's skies were still darkened with the looming presence of the Tsar fleet. The Federation's forces were battered but not broken. Leon, though proud of their victory, knew that the Tsar would not let their loss go unpunished. The enemy was relentless, and Earth had only one chance to survive: strike at the heart of the Tsar fleet and disable their command ship, the Vanguard. The Vanguard was massive, the flagship of the Tsar Empire. It was said to house the supreme Tsar commander, a being so powerful and ruthless that it was feared across the galaxy. To destroy the Vanguard was to strike at the heart of the Tsar war machine. But to get close to it was a dangerous mission, one that could easily result in death. Leon knew that the only way to win this war was to take a risk, a huge risk. Back at Federation headquarters, Leon gathered his most trusted officers in the war room. Arya, who had become an invaluable part of the Federation's war effort, was there as well, standing beside Leon. Her calm presence was a reminder to him that despite the chaos of war, there was still hope. "We need to take down the Vanguard," Leon said, his voice firm. "That ship is the key to the Tsar's power. If we can destroy it, we can cripple their entire fleet." "But it won't be easy," one of the officers replied. "The Vanguard is heavily guarded. We'll be walking into a trap." "I know," Leon said, "but it's the only option we have left." Arya stepped forward, her eyes narrowing as she considered the plan. "I've studied Tsar technology. Their defenses are nearly impenetrable, but there might be a weakness, an unshielded power core. If we can target it, we can disable the ship, but we'll need to get close enough to launch a direct strike." The room fell silent as everyone processed what Arya was suggesting. Getting close to the Vanguard was a suicide mission, but if they didn't try, Earth would fall. Leon's heart was heavy as he looked at Arya. He knew the risks, but he couldn't let fear take over. "We'll need a team," he said. "A small team that can infiltrate the Vanguard and plant the explosive device. I'll lead the mission." Arya's eyes softened. "Leon, I can't let you do this alone." "I won't be alone," Leon replied. "I'm bringing the best with me. You'll stay here and coordinate the attack from the ground. We need someone to make sure the Federation forces are ready for the next phase." "I won't be on the front lines," Arya said, her voice quiet but firm, "but I will help in any way I can." The plan was set. Leon and his small team of elite soldiers, handpicked for their skill and experience, prepared to leave for the Tsar flagship. The Vanguard was located on the outer edge of the Tsar fleet, surrounded by dozens of enemy ships. It would be a deadly journey, and the chances of success were slim. But Leon was determined. He had made a promise to Arya, and he intended to keep it. Before they boarded their ships, Leon found Arya in a quiet corner of the Federation base. The tension in the air was thick, and Leon could see the worry in Arya's eyes. She was strong, but this mission was different. If anything went wrong, he might not return. Arya reached out, taking his hand in hers. "Leon," she said softly, "I trust you. But please, come back to me." He squeezed her hand gently, his heart aching. "I will, I promise. I'll come back." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of the situation hung between them, but they both knew the truth. They had to do this. The future of Earth and of their lives depended on it. The mission was dangerous from the start. Leon and his team managed to slip through the Tsar fleet undetected, using advanced Federation stealth technology. But as they neared the Vanguard, they encountered unexpected resistance. Tsar ships patrolled the area, and their advanced sensors quickly detected the Federation ships. Leon's heart raced as enemy ships began to close in. "Prepare for battle," he ordered. His crew responded immediately, launching their own counterattack. It was a fight for survival as Leon's team fought off Tsar ships, dodging blasts and evading pursuit. "We can't stay here for long," one of the soldiers shouted. "We need to reach the Vanguard before the entire fleet swarms us. Hold your ground," Leon commanded. "We're not leaving until we destroy that ship." The Federation team pushed forward, using their smaller ship's agility to dodge the larger Tsar vessels. It was a tense, chaotic battle in space, with explosions and laser beams flashing all around them. Leon's focus never wavered. His only goal was to get to the Vanguard, and he was determined to see it through. After what seemed like an eternity, they finally reached the Vanguard, its massive size looming in front of them. The ship was a fortress, its exterior lined with layers of defense systems, shields, and weapons. But they had one advantage. Their stealth technology had kept them undetected long enough to get within striking range. Leon's team disembarked from their ships, now boarding the Vanguard itself. They moved quickly, staying in the shadows, using the cover of the ship's interior to their advantage. Leon's mind raced as he led the way. The ship's defenses were stronger than anything they had encountered, but they couldn't afford to waste time. The longer they stayed, the more likely they were to be discovered. They navigated the corridors of the Vanguard, a cold and sterile environment. The walls were lined with alien technology and the silence was unsettling. Leon's heart pounded as they reached the power core, a massive chamber filled with dangerous energy. If they could destroy it, the Vanguard would be crippled. But just as they were preparing to plant the explosive device, alarms began to blare. The Tsar had discovered their presence. "We've been compromised," one of the soldiers shouted. "We need to move now." "Plant the device," Leon ordered, his voice sharp with urgency. "I'll hold them off." The soldiers quickly set the device, but Leon knew they didn't have much time. The Tsar would be coming for them, and they had to get out before the ship was destroyed. He turned to face the door, his weapon ready. "Get to the escape pods. I'll cover you." But just as he was about to join them, the ship shook violently. The explosion had been set too early. The Vanguard was beginning to fall apart. "Move now," Leon shouted. Aria's voice came over the comms, calm but urgent. "Leon, get out of there now." Leon's heart raced as he turned to follow his team. But the damage to the Vanguard was too severe. The corridors were now filled with debris, and the ship's systems were beginning to fail. It was clear that they wouldn't make it out in time. "I'll hold them off," Leon said, more to himself than to anyone else. "You get out." "That's an order." As the ship continued to crumble, Leon fought with everything he had. He had made a promise to Aria, and he wasn't going to let her down. But the fight was far from over. With the Vanguard collapsing around him, Leon realized that his final mission was just beginning. The Vanguard was coming apart. Leon could feel the ship shudder beneath his boots as the explosion they had set began to tear through its core. The sounds of metal creaking and cracking filled the air as the ship's systems began to fail. Red emergency lights flickered in the hallway, casting an eerie glow on the walls. Time was running out. "Leon, we need to go," one of the soldiers shouted, panic creeping into his voice. They had planted the explosive device, but the Vanguard was collapsing faster than they had anticipated. Leon's heart raced, but he forced himself to stay calm. "We don't have much time," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Move!" They pushed forward, the soldiers following Leon as they navigated the crumbling corridors of the Vanguard. The countdown to destruction was loud in Leon's ears, like a drumbeat urging them to hurry. He could hear the Tsar soldiers moving through the ship, searching for them. Every step they took brought them closer to the escape pods, but the danger was far from over. The team moved quickly, but with every turn the path ahead grew more treacherous. Explosions rocked the Vanguard, causing sections of the ship to break apart. The walls seemed to close in around them. The path to the escape pods was blocked by debris, forcing them to find an alternative route. "Keep moving," Leon barked. He could feel his pulse racing, the adrenaline surging through his veins. His thoughts kept drifting to Aria. He had promised her he would come back. He couldn't fail now. Just as they rounded a corner, they encountered a squad of Tsar soldiers. Leon didn't hesitate. With one swift motion, he and his team opened fire, taking down the alien soldiers with practiced precision. There was no room for mistakes. They had no time to fight for long. "We're almost there," Leon said, wiping sweat from his brow. They were close now, but the Vanguard was crumbling faster than they had expected. The countdown was nearing its final seconds. Suddenly, the ship gave a violent lurch, throwing everyone off balance. The floor beneath them cracked open, revealing a deep chasm where the ship had been torn apart. The path to the escape pods was now completely blocked. "We're trapped," one of the soldiers shouted. Leon's mind raced. They had to get off this ship. There was no way they could survive the explosion if they stayed here. The Tsar were closing in and the Vanguard was collapsing faster by the second. "Follow me," Leon said, his voice sharp. "There's another way." Leon led his team through the darkened corridors, moving quickly but carefully. He could hear the Tsar soldiers' footsteps echoing behind them, growing louder by the second. They didn't have much time. They had to make it out before the ship was destroyed. Finally, they reached an emergency escape hatch. It wasn't the escape pod they had planned on using, but it was their only chance. Leon pulled the hatch open, revealing a small shuttle that was still intact. It was their only way off the Vanguard, and it wasn't much, just enough to get them to safety. "We're not done yet," Leon said as he helped his team into the shuttle. He could feel the ship shaking again, the final countdown echoing through the halls. "We've got this, sir," one of the soldiers said, giving Leon a firm nod. "We're getting out of here." Leon climbed into the shuttle, his team following closely behind him. The hatch closed, sealing them inside. The small vessel immediately began to power up, but the turbulence from the Vanguard's destruction made the ride anything but smooth. Leon gripped the controls, guiding the shuttle away from the crumbling remains of the Tsar flagship. As the shuttle ascended into the void of space, the Vanguard exploded behind them, a blinding burst of light that lit up the entire sky. Leon couldn't help but feel a surge of triumph. They had done it. The Tsar's flagship was destroyed, and with it a massive blow to their war effort. But the victory felt hollow. The battle was far from over. The Tsar fleet was still out there, and Earth was still in danger. The shuttle jolted as it cleared the debris field, and Leon's focus returned to the present. He glanced at his team, each of them alive but exhausted. They had survived, but the real fight was still ahead of them. The Vanguard was gone, but the Tsar had many more ships, many more soldiers, and they weren't going to stop until Earth was destroyed. "Mission accomplished," Leon said, his voice quiet. "But the war isn't over. We need to get back to Earth, to Aria, and to the Federation. We've made a dent in their forces, but we need to finish what we started." Back on Earth, Aria was anxiously waiting for news. She had been coordinating the Federation's defense efforts from the command center, but with each passing hour, her worry grew. She knew Leon was out there, fighting, but the uncertainty gnawed at her. She had never felt so powerless. She had trusted Leon just as he had trusted her. They had both given everything for this war, but the outcome was still uncertain. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were facing an enemy that was too strong, too ruthless to be defeated. When the news finally came, it was nothing like Aria had imagined. The message arrived through a secure channel, the words clear but full of urgency. "The Vanguard has been destroyed. Leon and his team are on their way back to Earth. The Tsar fleet has been weakened, but they're still a threat. Prepare for another wave." Aria's breath caught in her throat. Leon had done it. He had destroyed the Vanguard. It was the blow they needed, but the war wasn't over yet. Aria knew that. She had known from the start that this battle would be a long one. She felt a surge of pride for Leon and his team. They had faced impossible odds and succeeded. But there was no time for rest. The Federation's forces had to regroup, and the fight against the Tsar would continue. Aria took a deep breath, pushing her fear aside. She would not let doubt take hold. Humanity had shown its strength, its ability to rise in the face of adversity, and they would rise again. They would not let the Tsar destroy them. As Leon's shuttle finally re-entered Earth's atmosphere, he could see the familiar blue and green planet below him. Earth. Home. It had been far too long since he had seen it like this. Peaceful, beautiful, and fragile. But he also knew the truth. Earth was in danger. The Tsar were still out there, and they were not done fighting. The destruction of the Vanguard was a victory, but it was only the beginning of what would be a long and difficult war. As the shuttle touched down on Earth, Leon's heart raced with anticipation. He had made it back just as he had promised Aria. But the war wasn't over. There was still much to be done. Leon stepped out of the shuttle, his mind focused on the battle ahead. He had promised to protect Earth, to protect Aria, and no matter what, he would see that promise through. The power of humanity was not in their weapons, nor their technology. It was in their determination, their will to survive, and their ability to stand together in the face of any threat. And as Leon looked toward the future, he knew that humanity's greatest strength would always be its heart. The war had raged on for months. Earth had suffered, its cities scarred by the relentless attacks of the Tsar. But Leon's mission to destroy the Vanguard had dealt the enemy a heavy blow. The Tsar fleet had been thrown into disarray. Their once imposing strength had been fractured, but they were far from finished. The battle was far from over. As the weeks passed, the Federation forces regrouped. Leon and his team had returned to Earth, and with them came new hope. The destruction of the Vanguard was a symbol of humanity's will to survive, a message that the Tsar could not ignore. But the Tsar's commander, being known only as Zarak, was a figure of terrifying power. The Tsar had yet to face the true strength of humanity. They had underestimated the human spirit. Leon stood at the front of the Federation Command Center, looking out at the maps and reports laid before him. The Vanguard had been destroyed, but Earth was still in danger. The Tsar fleet had retreated for now, but they were regrouping. Zarak would not rest until every last human was wiped from the stars. "We have to prepare," Leon said, his voice steady. "The Tsar aren't finished. They'll come back. We can't let our guard down." Arya stood beside him, her eyes focused on the map as well. Her presence was a constant comfort to Leon, but she shared in his worries. The Federation had fought hard, but Earth's defenses were still vulnerable. Every decision Leon made weighed heavily on both their futures. "We're not alone anymore," Arya said softly, her voice full of conviction. "The galaxy is watching us. The Tsar may be powerful, but they've never faced humanity. We have something they don't, our heart." Leon nodded. "You're right. It's time we show them exactly what that means." The Federation had grown stronger in the wake of their victory over the Vanguard. The unexpected alliances they had formed with other alien races, many of whom had suffered at the hands of the Tsar, were now beginning to pay off. Human ingenuity and resilience were their greatest weapons, and they were not going to back down. Every new ship launched from Earth's shipyards, every weapon system designed by human engineers, made the Federation more formidable. But despite their growing strength, the Tsar were still out there. Leon knew they were planning something big. Zarak would not let his defeat go unanswered. Earth was on the front lines, and there was no retreat. The fate of the galaxy now hung in the balance. The next few days were a whirlwind of meetings, strategy sessions, and planning. Leon's mind was always on the battlefield, but he couldn't shake the thought of Arya. Their bond had been tested in ways neither of them had expected, but it had only grown stronger. She had seen the horrors of war in her own galaxy, but she had never imagined facing something like the Tsar. One evening, after a long day of planning, Leon found Arya in their quarters. She was looking out the window at Earth below, her eyes distant, lost in thought. He walked up behind her and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Thinking about the future?" Leon asked gently. Arya turned to him, her eyes filled with determination. "Thinking about how much we've already lost, but also about what we still have left. I think we can win this," Leon smiled. "I hope you're right." She met his gaze, her voice filled with confidence. "I know I am." The day of the final battle arrived. The Federation had received intelligence that the Tsar were gathering their forces for one last strike, an all-out assault on Earth. Their target was clear, the heart of the Federation's power, the Federation capital, located on the largest of Earth's cities, New Haven. It was going to be a fight for survival. Leon stood in the Federation's command center, his eyes scanning the reports of enemy movement. The Tsar fleet was moving fast, and their ships were unlike anything the Federation had seen before. They had learned from their previous mistakes, and now they were bringing everything they had to Earth's doorstep. "This is it," Leon said, his voice low and serious. "We need to stop them here. If we don't, they'll burn Earth to the ground." Arya stepped beside him. "And we will stop them," she said. "You've led us this far, Leon. We've already shown the galaxy that we're not afraid of them." The air was thick with tension as Federation forces prepared for the final battle. The massive fleet of ships, including human, alien, and allied forces, began to take formation in space. Leon and his team took their positions, ready to face the oncoming storm. The first wave of Tsar ships appeared in the sky above Earth, their dark shapes blocking out the sun. Their ships were powerful, each one capable of wiping out entire cities in seconds. But Earth had something they didn't: unity. Leon's voice came through the comms to the entire fleet. All forces engage. Show them what humanity can do. The battle erupted in an explosion of light and sound. Lasers fired in every direction, ships weaving and dodging through the chaos. Leon's ship, the Talon, tore through the sky, its advanced weaponry blasting Tsar ships from the air. The Federation forces fought with everything they had, their resolve unshakable. The Tsar had underestimated the strength of humanity, and now they would feel the cost of that mistake. The battle was fierce. It was like nothing anyone had ever seen. The Federation fleet was being pushed to its limits, but Leon refused to back down. Every strategy, every maneuver was a desperate bid to hold their ground. As long as they had breath in their lungs, they would not let the Tsar take their world. Leon fought with a fierce determination, his eyes always scanning the horizon for the next threat. He was everywhere, leading, guiding, ensuring that Earth's forces held firm. There was no turning back now. But then the unthinkable happened. A massive Tsar warship broke through the Federation defenses, heading straight for New Haven. It was clear that Zirak, the Tsar commander, had decided to make one final move. The ship was unlike anything they had encountered before. It was huge, with weapons capable of wiping out entire sections of the city with a single blast. "We have to stop it," Leon said, his voice urgent. "Arya, stay back." "I'll handle this." Arya shook her head. "No, Leon, we fight together." "This is our fight." Leon hesitated, but there was no time to argue. They both knew that this was the moment. If they didn't stop the Tsar now, Earth would fall. The Talon charged forward, Leon and his team at the helm, Arya by his side. They cut through the Tsar fleet, their weapons blasting enemies from the sky. It was a race against time as they neared the Tsar flagship. Leon's hands gripped the controls. The air around him seemed to thrum with energy, the stakes higher than ever. Every move they made brought them closer to their target. But the Tsar warship was ready for them. It unleashed a barrage of fire, the blast narrowly missing the Talon. "We can't keep dodging forever," one of the soldiers shouted. "We have to go in." Leon shouted back, "We don't have a choice." With one final push, Leon and his crew launched their final attack. The Talon slammed into the side of the Tsar warship, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The Federation forces followed suit, attacking with everything they had. But it was Leon and his team who made the final strike, using every ounce of their remaining strength to breach the enemy's defenses and take down their flagship. The Tsar flagship exploded, a brilliant flash of light filling the sky. The Tsar fleet faltered, and for the first time in months the Federation saw victory. The battle was over. Earth had won. Leon stood, exhausted but resolute, his eyes scanning the aftermath of the fight. They had done it. The Tsar were defeated. Arya joined him on the bridge, her face tired but filled with relief. She didn't need to say anything. Leon could see the pride in her eyes. They had fought together. They had won together. The battlefield trembled, but humanity stood strong. Earth was safe, and the future was theirs to shape.